Hi, everybody. This is Alexander Backman. Good evening. Today's April 24, 2019 of our Lord Jesus Christ. I'm happy to be here in the studio of CR News. Today, I have a very important interview to present to all of you with a great esteemed friend and a brother in the faith who's spent a lot of years doing diligent research. He worked for the oil industry and then went into private research into something that attains all of us, Planet X. Yeah, you know, that thing that everybody calls Nibiru, that's full of disinformation everywhere, and which everybody just out of nowhere believes that it's just debunked and it's not real. Well, no, this is the real thing, and the real research has already been put on the table. The models have been applied to other celestial events that have already happened, occurred, that have been measured and tried by modern astronomy. And part of that model is what GILL Broussard has been doing with his project called Planet-7X. His website is planet7x.net, and his YouTube channel, which is wonderful and stellar, is also Planet-7X. Please be sure to get all the resources that you can with regard to his work and join us for this very important interview that I have today. GILL Broussard is on the line right now with me directly from somewhere in the middle states. I think he's in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. GILL, are you there?
Yes, Alex. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
No, contrary, GILL. I'm very happy to have you on the show today. I'm excited even to have you with us today, and so we can talk about Planet X. There's so many things that are going on with regard to Earth changes on planet Earth. We have volcanoes going off or risking to go off. In Mexico City, Popocatépetl is about to blow its top, Pinatubo style, very similar to what we saw back in 1991 in the Philippines. There's a change in the seismicity because we were used to having recurrent windows of quakes that would go over 7 in magnitude or multiple 6s in just 1 month. Then those flurry of quakes just died down, and we would go like into spasms of sort, which obviously for us that are very much into earthquake prediction, we couldn't pinpoint the exact windows anymore of certain quakes that would be coming down the line. The sun is dormant. It's going into solar minimum right now during this year and the next. But something is still perturbing our solar system. And today we want to talk about your research and any updates with regard to Planet X.
Okay. As this planet approaches us, you're going to see more and more activity because of the stresses that it imposes on the Earth as far as volcanic activity and earthquakes, and the ring of fire in the Pacific has been very, very, very active. And so, yeah, this is a subject that people need to pay close attention to and do their own research. Keep in mind, we don't have a valid sighting in the public realm at this time. We do know through Malachi's work that the Vatican and the government has pictures and sightings of it, but there's none in the public realm at this moment. But the Bible gives us the indication that we'll have a general public will have only a short notice, and that shouldn't happen in modern times with telescopes unless the government figured some way of able to block it or cloak it from our view. So far I haven't found a scientific error that's in the biblical record pertaining to this at all. It follows a model that can predict the sequence of events because of orbital mechanics, and the people of the Bible didn't know orbital mechanics, but yet they got the sequence correct. And the So, and even just like in the Asian records that started all of this, in just 1054, which is, around 1,000 years ago, they saw it for 26 months, 13 months coming in, 13 months leaving. And they didn't have a telescope yet. That was naked eye observation. That takes a very large object to reflect light from a distance of that far away for them to see it for 13 months coming in and 13 months leaving. You can, basically, the longest comet that I've ever seen was something like maybe, or as far as data, reading data, was about 2 months. And that would be considered a very long one. Usually it's just a few weeks at the most. So this object was well documented by the Chinese astronomers, the Korean astronomers, and the Japanese astronomers. And when we build a model, it gives us the pathway that it travels. Like, basically, if you want to give an analogy, it's like a train has a track, it's laid. Okay, the train is always going to pass on the track, but it may be late and it may be early, or it's right on time. Well, that's basically what we have here. Without a visual, we can't give you the exact time that it would arrive. But we know the course, the track that it's riding on. We have its path. Okay, so we know where to look. Now, the Bible alludes that when it's arriving, that the moon has to be at the foot of Virgo. At means basically touching. You can't distinguish visually that it's not, that it's so close to it, that it's almost touching. And the dates that concerned me the most was 2016. That was a Jubilee, and the moon was at the foot of Virgo. And then again in 2021 in March. So with that, when we use the same model from the Asians and we back this up in our model, we reverse engineer it. For it to arrive at that time, then it should be somewhere between Saturn and Jupiter, about midway. I think I sent you a picture that shows that. That's our present model on where we're looking at, the direction we're looking at, and the distance. Now, once it reaches the orbit of Jupiter, that's around the 13th month mark, where the solar winds are strong enough to excite the plasma tail of a comet. The tail of a comet it's not ice particles like many astronomers are saying. The physicists have it much more correct. The tail of a comet is plasma. And this is when, if you have dark skies, you should be able to see it at the 13 months mark before it arrives. If you have light pollution from different cities, you would be seeing it 2 to 3 months later even. So, but eventually it will come into our view. And they would have to take down the internet. They'd have to take down the internet before the 2 to 3 million amateur astronomers would be posting this, because that's one of the hallmarks of knowing whether or not something is real. Most of these people that are putting up these fake pictures, they don't have a dozen astronomers showing them pictures of something up fairly close. If it would be there, they would take their telescope and give you close-up pictures of it. Clear, precise pictures, and they would be reinforcing each other with the location. Name one of these yahoos that claims to have a picture that can actually give you coordinates.
Oh, none of them. I've gone through a bunch of people that have contacted me as a journalist throughout the years, trying to give me coordinates. They've even sent me animations, supposed videos of the object, but none of it has really panned out. I belong to a group of researchers, like core researchers from around the world. and they were manipulated by some person that wanted to use these good, abiding investigators and researchers, many of them scientists, in order to dupe them into believing something that was not. So there's a lot of people out there that are willing to lie in order to gain some form of benefit with regard to Planet X. What say you?
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. But using that model from the Asian records and going back, we found it where it's 14 times in the scripture records. In other words, the Bible has it listed at least 14 times that it had passed, and another 5 times secular. And I think I was the first one to line up artifacts. We have about 4 to 5 ancient artifacts. Most of it's clay, some of them are metal. That depicts the skies at the time of his passing. That gives us the exact date.
You're talking about the sky disk of Nebra, right?
Well, I have multiple. I have that. I have the sky disk of Nebra. I have the, let me pull them up. I have the ceiling at one of the Egyptian temples.
Okay. Which
is in the Louvre at the moment. We have a clay disc that's in the British Museum, which depicts the time of when Jonah went to Nineveh. Okay, and this wasn't Jonah that made that clay tablet neither. It was the king's astronomers, because this is found in the king's library. Well, only someone of the royal household can be putting anything in the king's library. What this shows us where this planet was when it was rounding the sun at 40 days. Because when it rounds the sun, it's 40 days before it reaches Earth. Now, how did Jonah know this in the model? I'm using the Asian astronomer's model, the same one that worked through all of this. And it shows us 40 days. If they didn't have the orbital mechanics involved, remember, this is a message from God that Jonah is passing to the people. So it's impossible. I mean, even the Egyptian ceiling, it shows all of the planets, even the ones that are below the horizon, because they knew how much time it took before the planet would come back around. They show all of the planets along with what would be Horus, according to the Egyptians, which is our planet. Remember, they didn't have the word planet throughout most of society, throughout the ages. They gave them names. They called them mighty ones even. They treated them as if they were gods whenever they come around close, because it shook the whole world. We have overlapping data. We have the artifacts. We got the white paper reviewed articles. When we take all this with the same path and we lay this out, we go back and look at what NASA was doing since the 80s with the Pioneer and Voyager probe. As they were saying, they were looking for Planet X. You can go back and read the articles. Guess what? This lines up with the pathway of what the Asian and the biblical records, and all of this overlaps exactly. You know.
So that cannot be any coincidence, because when you extrapolate all those sources, obviously they point to the facts. And reason to point out this, which is so important, is that the astronomical sighting for months by at least 4 countries, astronomers from 4 countries in Asia, I think also Persia, right, got wind of the passing of not a supernova explosion, which was played off like that, but validated through a white paper that you have in your possession that establishes that this thing in the year 1054 passed through our solar system.
Correct. Now, keep in mind, a supernova is stationary. That means when you see it, it's in one constellation. It doesn't move. This object that they saw for 26 months moved through multiple constellations. And in fact, I was able to establish the orbit of it because they gave such exact measurements. They would say how many degrees and distance from a star. It was in such and such constellation. And as you went down, it gives us exactly that. And it happens to match just like Noah and the book of Revelation. A distance between entry and exit of 150 to 152 days. Well, that's the 150 days of Noah's time, the entry and exit, and that's the 5 months mentioned in the book of Revelation. That talks about 2 meteor showers, which are 5 months apart. Now, only way you can have 2 meteor showers is crossing Earth's path twice. It crosses Earth's path twice.
And this happens because of our orbit with respect to Planet-7X's orbit with respect to ours.
Yes, this object is on Earth's planetary plane. They're on the same plane. Okay, so they both have the sun as a fixed point to orbit around. Okay, the center of the sun, and for it to cross Earth path twice, that's 3 fixed points. You got the center of the sun and 2 points on Earth's orbital plane. That's 3 fixed. That means it can't be off the ecliptic. If you go look at any astronomy software, turn on the ecliptic, there's a line that goes right through the constellations, the 12 constellations. That's Earth's orbital plane. Well, this object has to be on that plane. It's coming out of Sagittarius.
Okay, I have it right here, Sagittarius. We have it on the screen. We have the solar system. We have Sagittarius in the southern sky. And that's why it's called Corona Australis. Remember, Australia means the south in Latin. And the southern sky comes out of the southern sky along the ecliptic, right?
Yes, it's because the math doesn't allow it to be anyplace else. We have enough data to better say that with confidence.
So it's coming in between Capricorn and Sagittarius, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, let me give you I'll send you a picture on if you have any astronomers out there, or even people with binoculars. We should see it. I mean, if you're in dark skies areas, you should see it up to 13 months ahead of time, as the Asian astronomers did, because they didn't have a telescope. It was naked eye observation.
Wow. More interesting then.
See, this is why most cultures, that's why the kings had astronomers. It was to give them advanced warning of this object coming in. That's why they were so fixed on documenting every comet, and they were looking for it. Roughly every 300 years or so, 360 years or so, is when it would come around, approximately. It doesn't have a stationary orbit. I mean, it has a stationary orbit, but it doesn't have a fixed time, because it depends if it bumps into something, or if it's influenced by the gravity of Jupiter or Saturn or anything. It interferes with the time that it takes, because this is one of the few objects that's on Earth's planetary plane, and it's a planet-sized comet. This is probably I'm kind of scaling down my estimates because of the magnetic fields that we're seeing from where it's at, roughly from where we estimate. Earth's magnetic fields are racing in the same direction as this is coming from. And for it to affect Earth from that distance, we expect, between Saturn and Jupiter, it would have to be a very metallic object. It would not be like the consistency of Earth. It would be much more heavier in metals. And then that would explain how it plowed through Ceres and destroyed the planet Ceres, where the asteroid belt is. There's an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. That is a destroyed planet.
Yeah, we have it right here in the model. We have Ceres right here, very close to Jupiter right now at the moment. And we have a bunch of debris fields between Jupiter and Mars. And this is exactly what you're talking about. Something hit that object that was there and just vaporized it, basically.
And it had to be a solid object because this planet kept going. But you can look at Ceres, it's completely shattered into trillions of pieces. You see? And that's why it's called the asteroid belt today.
Well, we can even zoom in the Ceres and see what it's all about. So people can see it in real time right now. They're looking at it on the screen. It has a lot of puck marks on it and huge craters on it.
Yeah. I would say probably now we're looking at something maybe twice the diameter of Earth. But it's going to be, much more metallic than what we first thought. Because of the magnetic fields, the effects that is happening to Earth is too dramatic. Okay. I mean, Jupiter doesn't do that to Earth.
Now, we know Jupiter because I've been doing research. Jupiter and Saturn have a lot to do with regard to solar events, like, for example, sunspot creations and also a lot of activity in the sun. So that's very interesting in itself because it's all electromagnetic.
Right. But even when Jupiter and Saturn line up, you don't see the magnetic north of Earth racing at 12 times its normal speed towards the geographic north. This object is the one that's causing that. So, and it's the main, if you look at everything around the Earth that's going, that's out of the norm, like sinkholes, tidal waves, massive storms, our weather patterns are extremes at times. Many, many more disasters. Everything is going off the charts. The earthquakes, the volcanoes, they all climbing exponential growth. So, and then along with the magnetic fields of the Earth, racing at 12 times its normal rate. And all of the planets are heating up, not just Earth. So,
and we also have the pole shifting rapidly towards Indonesia off Sumatra.
Keep in mind that that data, the ones who are writing this, are not aware of the influence of what a planet would do.
Okay, so they're not inputting inside their research the other object, which would be a very dense object, larger than our planet, at least 5 times larger than Earth, that would come in and play a tug of war of sorts electromagnetically between the sun and its pull on planet Earth and its pull with planet Earth. So this thing, as it comes in, is going to have a tug of war electromagnetically with all of them.
Right. According to the Nebra sky disk and the information also at another period of time, Hezekiah, when the shadow went backwards on steps, not a sundial. That's an error in the English. The Hebrew quotes it as steps. Between both of those items shows a 26 to 28 degree tilt of Earth. When the planet comes by, it's like 2 opposite poles attract, and they both lean towards each other. But they lean at 26 to 28 degrees. They don't flip 180 degrees. That's a myth. It doesn't happen. It's a misinterpretation of ancient languages.
So it would, like I used to say, it would rockin' to and fro like a drunkard on a hammock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember the story of Joseph. where the skies bowed to him.
Yep.
That was literal. The Niebuhr disk proves that out. Because the Niebuhr disk was done in Germany. It was created in Germany. It was found in Germany. Okay? But the constellations at the bottom of the Niebuhr disk, you cannot see that from the latitude of Germany unless Earth tilted 26 to 28 degrees. And the sun and moon are both shown there with all the stars showing. It's not a normal eclipse because only the moon is eclipsing the sun. Oh, no. The moon is shown in a crescent shape. You can't have a solar eclipse if the moon is in a crescent shape.
Absolutely.
It's showing us a third object is there.
Absolutely.
So when we analyze the data and we have white paper reports, we have comments like from Malachi Martin that he did. Let me see what year it was that he said what he said.
Well, Malachi Martin, yeah, he was a Jesuit priest that was assassinated in 1999. He got out of the Vatican because of what he learned about their rituals that they do and all that stuff. And then he was a stellar novelist. He wrote many bestsellers. He lived in New York. A very dedicated man of God. He did a lot of exorcisms. And Malachi Martin wrote a lot about it and was also on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell talking extensively about wormwood and the end of days and how the Jesuit observatories around the world, 66 of them, were kind of like fixated or obsessed with the coming of this object and that it was imminent.
Yep. Malachi Martin was also an astronomer. And in 1996, remember the Vatican went online in 1993. That's 1992 in December is when NASA went silent on the Planet X thing because their space probes, according to the data that I'm looking at, made instrument contact. They were able to coordinate the point in space that the object was. So they went silent in 1992, and then the Vatican went online in 1993. And I've spoken to the head engineer, called me, who designed the infrared instruments that went on this Vatican telescope.
Oh, you're talking about the Lucifer, Lucifer array in Arizona?
Right.
Okay.
And it's many times more misadvanced than what the documents are saying. It's a top-of-the-line government. It's the equipment given to a private entity, which I'd like to know why. Why is some of the top secret stuff, capabilities of infrared given to the Vatican? They must have some pretty good stroke. So in 1996, I'm going to give you a quote from Father Malachi. He said, knowing of what's going on in space and what's approaching us. Okay, right here. What's approaching us, he said, could be of great importance in the next 5 to 10 years. Well, according to the model that I was able to generate, you add 10 years of 1996, all right, that would give you 2006. And the model shows that it would have been at the edge of our solar system, around where Neptune is. And he's speaking as an astronomer to the community. Okay, the astronomers for their normal telescope should have been able to see it, but they didn't. But you have a man quoting you right here that it would be of great interest right here. It's going on what's approaching us. Well, has anybody said anything approaching us during that time? No, it's all been quiet. They have some way of cloaking it.
Yeah, it's been hushed. They try to hide it. And what they did is how to cloak something that's coming. Well, you create distortion. You create chaos in the field. I ran back the model of the solar system, and you could see Voyager 2 is in the southern sky towards Sagittarius. This is where you're saying that possibly they had contact with it.
They had 3 probes. They sent 4 out. They put the first 2 they sent opposite of the universe. because there was anomalies on both, because something was tugging at the planets. So once they sent the two, one probe was speeding up, the other one was slowing down. Well, they knew then that the source of the magnetic pull was the one pulling the satellite quicker. Right. That's why they sent the other two in that direction. Well, they had estimated it may have had a clockwise orbit instead of the normal counterclockwise. So they sent one ahead of it. Then they sent one above it slightly and one below it, where they thought it was going to be. But once it reached outside our solar system, about five or 6 years out, that's when their instruments was able to pick up enough of it, and they were able to triangulate it, and it was heading towards our sun.
Bingo.
It didn't have a circular orbit like all of our other ones. It had an elliptical orbit, and it was heading towards our sun. That became a threat right there. And they could tell that it was on the ecliptic, Earth's planetary plane. So they had to go silent until they find out whether or not this is a serious threat or not. And it's been on a secret project ever since. So we have I'd like to report we don't have a real object, but I can't. There's too much overwhelming data. I was a hardened skeptic at the beginning of this, but without factual data and overlapping data, I have no footing to stand here as a skeptic anymore. It's overwhelming. Good, solid data.
Now,
we have a threat.
Right. We have a threat. We have a clear and present danger to our civilization. It's happened before again. You mentioned the Egyptian information. You mentioned the Nebra disk. You mentioned all the evidence from different disciplines. And all this points to the same thing. A second, we would call it like a second object similar to our sun, but it's really like a comet or planetary body that will, as it enters our system, start perturbing everything else. And this would play perfectly with what you say, dovetailing perfectly with what we're having right now with the events all across the solar system, because we know Venus is super bright and Jupiter is changing. What's your take? I got a question for you. What's your take that out of nowhere they said they found like 20 more moons on Jupiter, and they found like I don't know how many more moons on Saturn? What's your take?
I haven't read about that yet, but that sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, because they were saying that even one of the moons on Jupiter is spinning the other way on its orbit in a different direction than the rest of the moons. And I don't know. I mean, it could impact one of the other moons. I don't know.
Now, this object, through my research, the Asians did wood carvings. They did it in bronze bells, and they put images of it and everything. And that's where you get the fiery dragon of old. They didn't have the word comet. Throughout Asia, and Israel is in Asia, Asian continent.
Right.
That area was the fiery dragon of old. Okay, that's what they called a large comet. In the Greek and the Roman, it would be a fiery sword. Often it would be used. But getting back to the Asian drawings of this thing, it shows sometimes it shows 6, sometimes it shows 7 moons around it, orbitals. And what's interesting is the book of Revelation says it's a 7-headed dragon, which would be an interesting correlation here. So that's why some people have mixed this up as being a mini solar system.
Okay, if it like the Sumerians played out it to be based on the fake interpretation by Zechariah Sitchin, right?
Right. The Sumerians never said that. They were given names to these things, but it's Sitchin that came up. This must be a mini solar system. No, it was a star pattern. Matter of fact, I misidentified the star pattern, and it's in one of these I've already got that I've already named. It's one of these same time periods. See, it doesn't always pass close to Earth. Earth might be on the opposite side of its orbit when it's coming in. But when it, at least 3 to 4 times, it passed so close to Earth that it tilted Earth. Earth goes back, but not all the way, between 4 to 7 degrees. It's off on its, you have a new North Pole that's off by anywhere between 4 to 7 degrees on average. And that also shifts your continents around a little bit. You can see ancient foundations. And people knew where north and south was, okay? They would either line it up with the sun or whatever, or setting sun or whatever they wanted. They knew where the solstice was, you know, when they had these ancient observatories that go all the way back to Joseph time.
Right.
To where they knew exactly how long a calendar year was, when to plant and everything. And you'll find these bases of certain monoliths and the pyramids and different other type of things where they're shifted between 4 to 7 degrees, and sometimes multiple times they were shifted, because it depends on how many events that they were built, you know, during the time that this thing passed. Like the further it goes back in time, the more events that this thing has passed through. So one of the scariest things that the Bible says, the next time that this object passes by, is the greatest or the worst event in all of Earth's history. And the Bible tells us this. I'm not making that line up. The Bible says the next time this thing passes, it's the worst time in all of Earth's history. That means Noah's flood was not the worst. Let that sink in for a minute.
So we're talking of an event, a magnanimous event, where in this time around, because if everything coincides, everything is being fulfilled according to Bible prophecy, the creation of the state of Israel, the relationship of Jerusalem as the epicenter of time and space, equidistantly with regard to locations in time, space, and matter, and when we extrapolate this information with regard to Israel and the prophetic implications of Israel as a timepiece for prophecy fulfillment, that this object is the object that this time around will fulfill the verses in the Bible that speak of the destroyer or that great judgment that is to come.
That is correct. Remember, every 2,000 years, the constellation shift over a month, okay? In other words, 2,000 years ago, for Passover, it was, I think, Libra, the scales of judgment,
right,
and paying off a debt. That was in the skies exactly during Passover. Today, it's Virgo, as the book of Revelation says. And it says when the moon is at the foot. And on top of that, it said the generations that shall Israel form shall not die out before all is fulfilled. That includes all the way up to the rapture. That all the prophecy in the book will be fulfilled. Well, 1948, in according to Hebrew methodology, is that you have to be 12 years old, the minimum, to be a witness to something. So if you take the Holocaust generation, they're coming out of the Holocaust, Israel was formed. If he was 12 years old, he will not die out before all is fulfilled. Well, in 2021, they're going to be 85 years old. And by the time the rapture happens, which is 3.5 years later, at the end of the Great Tribulation, he'll be almost 90. Matter of fact, counting the Hebrew way, because Hebrews they don't have a year zero. That's modern. They would be 90 according to the Hebrew way of counting. We're running out of time. So there's multiple points here. that are coming together.
Okay, up on the screen, Gil, I can pinpoint to the year 2024. I'm there on 24th of March, curiously. And I can see the moon inside Virgo, but on top of it. Can you point us more or less, according to your model, why 2024 is important, please?
2021.
Oh, sorry, 2021. I thought 24. Sorry.
At the end of March,
Okay.
either. Plus, if you use an astronomy software, remember there's a 12-hour delay on Earth's rotation, just like Joshua's long day.
Right.
Earth is going to pass into the tail of this comet, which is plasma, not ice particles. And it will cause, within those 3 days, Earth will lose 12 hours of its rotation. And that will change the impact zone to the opposite side of Earth. So to see what the skies would be like in Jerusalem, you got to position yourself at the same latitude, but in the middle Pacific Ocean. Okay, and when you look at that, then the moon is touching the foot of Virgo. And that's 3.5 days after Passover, which is actually 3 days in Hebrew counting. You have to have the mindset. This is a Hebrew book written by Hebrews in the same mindset.
Right.
Hebrew counts the days from sunset to sunset. We count our days as 24 hours. So if we count it in modern time, it's 3.5 days. Because that third day is going to have an extra 12 hours added to the nighttime in Jerusalem time. Well, that's still 3 days in Hebrew way of counting. And he will come mid of that night. That's why if you read the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 are wise, 5 are foolish. Mm-hmm. Well, in Hebrew, those particular virgins you're talking about right there, or the word actually was maiden. They're bridesmaids. He says this is like a wedding. It's not a real wedding, but it's like a wedding. And what makes the wise wise and the foolish foolish is that the foolish only have a normal amount of oil for a regular night for 12 hours. The wise have 2 portions of oil for 12 hours. And it says after they burn their first portion, they're trimming the wick and refilling it. Then the shout goes out that the groom has arrived. That's exactly mid of that night. But the foolish don't have any more oil. They have to go back and they miss their opportunity. And because there's 2 taking aways in the scriptures. One at the beginning of the Great Tribulation where there's a remnant that's brought to a place in the wilderness where they're shielded from the bad things of the Great Tribulation for 3.5 years. Then 3.5 years later is where all believers are raptured, the dead are first, then the living. Those are the guests to the wedding. Then the bridemaid enters, and then the bride. And you have a feast that's going on in the new Jerusalem that's hovering in the skies, while the Antichrist is looking up, seeing us stand on a sea of glass. And this is like I said, if you look at the science that's in the Bible, a lot of people say, "Oh, there is no science." Wrong. There's plenty of science.
No, the signs are all there. The data is all there. Everything points perfectly to prophetic significance and how Bible prophecy is 100% exact. Many people just tend to dispel it because they never read the Bible. They don't understand because it's like speaking with a millennial and they want to speak to you using 140 characters of code. When you've read volumes of books, you have a huge knowledge base from where you're extrapolating all this confirmation information for them to understand. But sometimes you just talk to a brick wall, and the brick wall doesn't budge.
Right.
So yeah, I know what you mean. I can sense a bit of frustration, with regard to that situation. But, the people that understand this message will obviously take it to heart and say, hey, there's something here. I'm going to go to planet7x.net. I'm going to start reading it on my own and validating it and going into prayer maybe.
See, only over the last 20 years have we had the correct knowledge from the physicists that generates the model that proves out the stories of the Bible. How did the Earth stop and have a 12-hour delay? It's because Earth is passing through the tail of this comet, which is plasma, not ice particles. And that causes us to slow down, like it's going to happen. See, this is the false miracle of the Antichrist. The false miracle is going to claim this miracle for himself. Okay, that he's going to slow down. He's going to change time. He's going to rotate. He's going to slow down the Earth's rotation. And he's going to have fire fall on his enemies, North and South America. This is the Antichrist's false miracle at the same time. And even the elite will possibly be fooled if they're not aware of this.
Oh, I believe that many inside the world elite, Gil, are already making plans. We know that back in 2010 there was a preparation of sorts in Australia among the elite called the ARC Project or something like that, where they were really preparing to survive the inundation of Australia. I don't know. I mean, Norway has people already set to be taken underground in at least half of its population. Russia's preparing in the Ural Mountains a lot of underground installations. But will that be enough for to survive the events that are coming, when in reality we just have to face it up front, take it as it is? It's the end of days.
A underground facility is a tomb. That's looking like movies, okay? We're looking at a scale of where continents are shifting, okay? You're looking at volcanoes going off that will put enough ash, and once it rains, the ash turns to cement. You're locked into your tomb. If the ground shifts enough, your mechanism to open a door won't open. The way to survive this is to be at the pivot point of the tilt, which is going to be around Jerusalem when it tilts. And that's the least affected area. And you stay above ground. That's the only way you're going to meet the Messiah to start out with, is if you're above the ground. The two prophets will show up 3 to 3.5 days before the Messiah shows up. They will be there for Passover meal, or the meal of unleavened bread. That's where you set a place at the table, empty, waiting for them. They appear, and you get to talk to them for the next 3 days, asking questions. And there'll be no TV crews. There'll be no radio saying the two prophets have arrived, because we've already started to enter the tail of the comet. That means all electronics globally have to be turned off for 3 days, and then it's eclipsing the sun on the side that's facing.
Well, obviously, it's logical that God's gonna be wanting to tell everybody in their technologically proclivious mindset, "Hey, wake up! Look, I'm shutting down your devices. All of you techno junkies, shut it off." And what he's going to do is he's going to shut off everything. How? Maybe it will be an electromagnetic event that will just shut down our grid. And what we will see is the night sky, and we will see and hear probably the sounds of many roaring trumpets, like if they were going into battle. I don't know. What say you? They already researched that the electromagnetic field of Earth does ring like a bell. So that would explain a lot of the vibrations that people report that they're hearing like trumpet sounds.
You see, when Earth starts to enter the tail of this comet, it's concentrated plasma. That's exactly the same thing when the sun is releasing a solar flare. Okay, So, yes, you got to turn off the electrical devices. It's just like the Earth being hit with an EMP wave for 3 days straight. And at the same time, when the plasma hits the magnetic field, the northern and southern lights are going to be so active, they're going to come all the way down to the equator. They'll be super concentrated. Okay, and it's going to howl like a trumpet. When the northern lights and the southern lights are super active, they howl like a trumpet. And they will be howling, because this is going to be the strongest northern and southern lights that you will ever see, because we're in the tail of this comet.
Now, I'm looking for an image that you had sent me a while ago about the plasma tail. I can't find it here, so I can put it up on the screen.
I sent it in Skype. I sent it in Skype for you.
Okay,
you should have a picture of Skype.
Yeah, because I've been illustrating everything that you've been saying as we go along in this incredible interview. To put this into perspective, people, I mean, time is passing. GILL's model has been criticized before because they say, well, it didn't pan out in 2014. It didn't
16.
pan out in
Yeah,
16, sorry, in 16. GILL, what do you want to tell all those people that are narrow-minded still and think that since it didn't happen in 2016, it's not going to happen anyway?
Like I said, we have no sighting of it. I can only give estimates. Estimates is look up the definition of an estimate. Best educated guess with the data we have at hand. The only way that I can give you the exact date is after we have a sighting. We can estimate, as it gets closer and closer, we can narrow that time frame down.
Okay, I got the slide on the page. After a 12-hour delay in Earth rotation, expect a 40-day warning from the nation governments of the arrival of Planet-7X. The moon at the foot of the woman Virgo clothed in light. That's the celestial alignment, right, with Leo and the 12 stars crowning her head. And then 3.5 days earlier will be Passover, when the two witnesses, Elijah and Moses, arrived to Jerusalem. And this estimate, because you put even a seal here on it that says estimated, okay? Please look at it. I'm going to make it big so people can see it. Because then they say that it wasn't true. But it says see comments, okay, for reference only, which is very clear. These are great models. They're great projections, but they have to be adapted according to what's going on, right?
That's right. And keep in mind, the Bible alludes to that we'll have a short notice. The internet will be down. They're not going to allow astronomers to tell the public. And they're already passing laws that we can't tell you without being thrown in prison. Okay? So, if you know, I'm showing you where to look, and it's going to look like a comet. And it's not going to be scary. Most of the time, it's going to be very small in the sky. Not until it gets to about the last 2 weeks of its approach. It's going to get very big, very quick. Okay? So that's when it gets scary.
That's when it gets scary. And we've read, I have a book right here. I have it here in my library. The Colburn Bible from the Chaldean Trust. It also mentions there some very impressive testimonies from the Egyptians when they saw it come in during the time of the Exodus. According to these documents, they hear like thunder and roaring sounds, and they hear the sun being eclipsed for days, and everything is really in a state of total chaos and destruction on Earth. But they survived, and this is key to understand, right?
Yeah, I can show you the Eye of the Sahara in Africa. That is a plasma discharge strike that made that crater, because it's not a concave crater; it's a flat crater. Okay,
let's talk about that, because a lot of people think that plasma is not dangerous.
That's a 30-mile wide lightning bolt. When the two planets get close to each other, they discharge like capacitors, and they'll throw a lightning bolt that's 30 miles across. Okay, remember, what was it? I forgot who had Zeus. I think it was the Greeks, where it says Zeus was throwing lightning bolts.
Right.
Well, that one could have been seen from Greece, the one that hit Africa over there. It's called the Eye of the Sahara. Anybody can go to Google Map and look at it.
We have it on the screen right now.
Okay, so this is one of the places. The other places, a lot of people believe when it was moving for the Exodus, that's when the Grand Canyon was created, because it matches the just like a lightning bolt, the fingers, kind of the lightning bolt, that the original cutting of the path of the Grand Canyon was plasma. Because if you look at where the washout starts, okay, because there was a big lake that started to erode the rest of it, it doesn't go as high as the cutout of the rock was from the plasma. The water erodes much, much lower. And so, and this is also what you see on the planet Mars, a huge canyon. And that was carved out because of plasma, because Mars got too close to it. We have video evidence of Comet Siding Springs when it passed near Mars. There was an electrical discharge proving out the model of the physicists being correct, that the tail of a comet is charged particles, plasma. It lit up the entire planet of Mars like a light bulb. Boom. And that was a small rock in space. Now, this planet, I believe, is larger than Earth. Anywhere between 2 to 3 times the diameter, somewhere like that. I'm scaling it back down from 7 because it appears that it's more metallic because of the magnetic pull that we're seeing. There's no other answer for this thing.
Now,
so it doesn't need to be as big.
Right. About the wobbling effect that it has on us. This wobbling is obviously a mathematical, provable way to know where it's located. Is that correct?
Well, in a way, it tells us how close it is to us, because we have 2,000 years of the magnetic traces of the magnetic pole of Earth over the last 2,000 years. Where if I overlay where these, you see, 14 and 5, 19 events happen. Well, no, only up to the time of Christ. Okay, that would probably be about 5 or 6 events. And see where the magnetic pole was. Well, guess what? It was near the geographic pole like it is today. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it tells me that this automatically pulls the magnetic pole very close to the geographic pole of Earth. Each time it's very close to Earth. Right now, they're right next to each other. I would say that tells us that it's within 2 to 3 years from us.
So
it's not going to continue on to Siberia like the paper said. Right now, it stopped. It stopped moving.
Yeah,
and it's going to wobble. It's going to wobble right in that area. This is exactly what it did in the past. This is exactly what I see in the records.
So there's a theory going around that there's an imminent pole shift coming, a magnetic pole shift, that it's accelerating, that it happened like 100 years ago. And the poles are, the South Pole is out of under Australia somewhere, the magnetic pole. And the northern magnetic pole is going towards Siberia. But you're saying it stopped and it's going to tend to come back to its original place.
No, it's just going to sit there and wobble.
Oh, it's just going to sit there and wobble.
It's going to wobble with the geographic north. They're just going to sit in that zone, that comfort zone that they're in right there. They're just going to wobble, okay? They're not going to continue on. It raced, now it's reached its maximum point that the planet draws it at. Until it gets right up to us, now it's going to cause us to tilt. The whole planet will tilt 26 to 28 degrees, according to the past records. Now, what's interesting about this magnetic stuff that these geologists are not able to explain because they're not into, they don't cross science into another
discipline.
Into a discipline. Okay, it's like it's taboo. Well, before I ever got into this Planet X stuff, I read a finding probably like 20 years ago or more, where they had this volcanic vent, and then the lava was coming out, not very, very fast, and they were able to document that the magnetic field of Earth changed something like 7 times within the time that this vent was flowing lava. Okay, so do you mean to tell me that Earth flipped 7 times? No, because that's just the magnetic field flipped. Now, what would cause that? Well, guess what? When you hit a magnet with a lightning bolt, the magnetic field switches. Each time you hit a magnet with a lightning bolt, the magnetic field switches. What do you think would happen to Earth if a 30-mile lightning bolt, plasma, or from this planet would hit Earth? It would switch the magnetic poles. Each time Earth is hit, the magnetic poles would swap. So that answers why this volcanic vent showed several magnetic field swaps in a certain period of time.
And which volcanic vent is that?
I don't know. That's something that I read like 20 years. I can't even find it anymore.
Okay. All right.
This was something before I ever got into, that was just an article that I found very interesting.
Okay.
And, but I do remember it because it was a mystery to me at the time. But now it's answerable. You can answer that. That is because plasma discharge strikes from another body that came too close to Earth. Because
because right now everything, I mean the web is just full of information, but right now everybody's talking about even Stanford University put out the information. We're going into a mass extinction event, the 6th one, and they're saying it's imminent. And I don't know how they're playing it out, but I'm watching this series right now from Netflix called Our Planet. But they're pushing the leftist agenda where it's our fault. And unless we do something in the next Alexandra Diaz-Ocasio 20 years or so, before she's 40, it's all going to end now. What say you?
I'm sorry, I was loading up a video for you.
No, it's okay.
Sending it to Skype. What was the
it's okay.
question?
It's just that they're pushing this agenda, Gil. It's okay. They're pushing this agenda.
You're breaking up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, they're pushing an agenda through media and science that we're already going into the 6th mass extinction event. Now, Fukushima aside, that it killed off the rest of the Pacific Ocean. They're pushing it that we don't have more than 20 years. That's Alexandra Ocasio-Diaz saying that, it's coming. The end of the world is here. Climate change, and it's human-made and all that. When in reality, something else coming down the line. They're trying to use this as a cover or a shield for their nefarious practices to submit humanity into their purposes. Huh?
Correct. The math does not work out on humans being the cause of CO2 and global warming. No, the math does not work out. What they don't want to tell you, there's let me check my numbers. I think it's 3.4 or 3.6 million subsea volcanoes.
Oh yeah, okay? I have that data. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
James McCanney did a lot of research on that.
Yeah.
And there's 3.5 million
subsea
volcanoes or vents.
Right. If you take the percentage of on how many volcanoes there are and how many are active, okay, and use that same percentage and apply it to the subsea, you should see around 60,000, 61,000, I believe it is, subsea volcanoes that are going off. Now, we've seen 2 islands made in a single day. Remember? But there's no more talk about them. There's no more talk about any lava or any subsea vents or anything. Okay?
No, just look at Kilauea. Kilauea last year on May 5th had a 6 point some earthquake and then just erupted. And now it's having activity again. And Kilauea, mind you, just to point that out and put it out there, Kilauea is exactly located at 19.4 latitude north, which is Hawaii right here, which is exactly the same latitude as Popocatépetl in north of Mexico, south of Mexico City, in the state of Puebla, which is also about to blow. So these correlations with regard to the connection with hyperdimensional physics, which is something I've been studying a lot since Carl Munck's day. Do you think there's a connection there too with these numbers at 19.47?
Well, I like this this other gentleman that's been able to predict. I think it's Dutch scent, maybe. He's been able. He takes a close look at the plates that are not talked about. There's interconnecting plates, and they're shifting, and it's all along those plates. If you have 2 movements on a plate, that means something's going to happen in between the 2. You know, where the plates are shifting, and he's been quite accurate. I mean, amazingly accurate on his predictions.
Yeah, I know his model. His name is Michael Janich, and he's been very popular on YouTube in English. We also do earthquake prediction in Spanish, and I appreciate a lot of his work. I understand where he's coming from with regard to the energy migration. But there's also a lot of electromagnetic elements within from the core and also from the crust downward. These huge lightning bolts that you mentioned that could strike the Sahara Desert and create these massive events of magnetic polarity reversals, which is something very interesting, could also happen inside the Earth. It's happening all the time. And these convective currents that could just come out of the mantle and hit the underneath of the plate could also shift it and bring further ruptures up to the surface. And that's something that he's been studying tremendously, which are these deep source quakes or deep focus quakes that start pushing upward. Let's say Fiji, they're at 600 kilometers deep, and then they just start pushing up, and then you get an 8.2 at those depths. Something is happening inside the mantle of Earth. It's not at the crust level, it's inside the asthenosphere. So,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
Keep in mind when I can't quote the science exactly, but I think you better get the main gist of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The sun, when it burns either hydrogen more than helium, which it's doing the opposite now, sends out a certain radiation that your thermometer doesn't pick up on. And it is heating the Earth, like all of our planets are heating it, but it heats it from the core almost. And it doesn't take much heat to expand magma to where it has to leave. It has to go somewhere. And getting back to our subsea volcanoes, that's what's killing most of our sea life. The methane that they are releasing is killing the majority of our sea life, because they only need parts per million to be poisoned.
Well, I just sent you a link from Robert Felix's excellent website, icehnow.com. And Robert Felix, the author of the book, Not by Fire, but by Ice, has an article from November 16, 2016. It's up on our screen. It says as many as 10 million underwater volcanoes, not 3, 10 million.
Yep. Yep.
So
they're hiding.
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk about them. I mean, so if you see what's happening above ground, well, just use the numbers and calculate what you would expect underneath the ocean, because it has less. Remember, the ocean is really the second layer, like an onion.
Right.
Continental crust is the first layer. Mm-hmm. So it has less layers to go through. So there's less resistance, you know. So there's only one denominator that gives us the answer to, you can list at least 30 effects that are off the charts. There's only one denominator that fits that profile. That's an inbound planet. What would affect Mars? Why are all the planets heating up? What's affecting our sun? What's causing the magnetic north of Earth to point to the direction that it's coming from? It's racing to the area. It's pointing. If you look at this, it's going towards the south of the universe. That's where it's pointing at. South of the universe is where Sagittarius is. South of the universe is not where polar south is. Universe south is where Sagittarius is. And so that's another way that you can find a few people that don't know what they're talking about. They're looking at the South Pole. You'd put a telescope on the South Pole because Earth is tilted, and you'd have better sky. You know, you have a better observation to look at south of the universe from that point there.
Right.
Because, but it has nothing to do that they're looking literally straight up. No, they're not looking straight up from their point of view. They're looking at south of the universe. That's where Sagittarius is. That's where they sent the Pioneer and Voyager probes. This is where the Asian astronomers saw it. This is where all the data is pointing. We have overlapping data from multiple sources. Some of them are peer-reviewed papers. I have 2 of them. And then we have the factual on where they sent the Pioneer and Voyager probe, and you can read the newspaper articles. They were looking for Planet X.
And absolutely. We have the documents from the Washington Post. All this was brought out profusely back in the 90s. I have all the books on it. Back in the early 2000s. I mean, a lot of diligent research went into it, and everybody thought 2012 was it, you know, because of the Mayan calendar thing, and it didn't happen. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, all right? And things are just getting worse each moment. I mean, if you take into account that the amount of CO2 or SO2 and the methane that the underwater volcanoes are spewing out, now it's 10 million. I mean, if you compare that to how much CO2 humanity makes, I bet you if we compare that to a 100-story building, what humanity contributes in CO2 for that building is probably just the thickness of the tile on the first floor of the building. I mean, we don't produce anything in comparison to what a volcano spews out.
Correct. Keep in mind, supposedly, where did the oil come from? It came from decaying plant life. Okay. But wasn't that plant life living at one time? It had CO2 it had to absorb to make itself.
Right.
So basically, you're releasing the same O2 that it absorbed. You're not getting any new CO2 from someplace else. But yet, all the vegetation flourished. Remember, this is food to the plants. When you put more CO2 in the air, your grass simply grows quicker. That's all that all it does. It balances itself out. And
well, in fact, this is for Alexandra Ocasio. Humans make CO2 when they breathe out, and that's what makes trees grow, right?
Well, tell her to hold her breath. That's all I got to say. Tell her to hold her breath.
Go hug a tree, Alexandra. Go hug a tree.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Gil. Gil, could we further this interview into a second part, maybe in the month of May? Because we still have to go through the order of events that lead us to understanding the succession events. And I want people to tell us in the comment section of this video if they want to do that second interview with you, if they want to hear what you have to say, because Planet X is coming down the line. It's already here. And to your best assessment right now, just to keep them, connected to the train of thought that we have here, the best estimate you have right now, according to your model, is 2021?
The end of March of 2021, the moon is at the foot of Virgo. We're using data out of the Bible to help us try to estimate where it is and where to point the telescope. That's our present estimate. Until we have a visual, then we have confirmation. But I'm willing to bet, there's no way that they're going to risk a $30 trillion global economy by letting amateur astronomers out and giving pictures to everybody, warning them. There's 2 to 3 million amateur astronomers that they can't control. They have to shut down the internet. So I have no way of warning your people. I have no way of warning anybody. They have to be on their own. They have to know where to look, and I provide them the data. Look at Sagittarius on the ecliptic between Capricorn and Sagittarius. Do you see a comet on the ecliptic? That's the one you got to get worried about. Okay,
so on your website, which is planet7x.net, I want people to please go there. Go to planet7x.net.
And click on the Google Drive, the Google Drive.
Okay, down below, there's download free Planet 7X charts. And here you can go for Google Drive download. Download the slides. Start studying them as quickly as possible, because this thing is coming down the line. You can contact Gil. His email is there on the website at the bottom right. It's planet7x@gmail.com. He also offers live presentations. Is that correct, Gil?
Yes. I give presentations and I'm charged for them. Matter of fact, if you want to do a call-in show and filter the questions, and if there's something that I can answer, I'd be more than glad. But,
okay. Let's try to organize that. Also, I would like to put you in contact with there's a group in New Zealand I'm in contact with. They're working in astronomy, and they're very interested in talking about these subjects. I might like to put you in contact with them, see if you can have a presentation over there, and that would be very helpful. And also to get the information out, because there's a lot of misinformation, and that's the problem. That clutters the facts, and it creates obfuscation of what's really important here. And that is the diligent research of one man, in this case, GILL BROUSSARD, and many others that have spent tireless years, okay? But it's not even nights anymore. We don't even sleep well anymore of so much research that we do in order to get this information out. And again, your website is planet7x.net. Your YouTube channel is youtube.com/planet7x, and you have some DVDs on your website that people must buy and watch in order to understand much of what you've been sharing through the charts. Yeah.
Well, the DVDs mention like our first date, which is 2016. Okay.
Okay, sure.
We're looking for a date that the moon is at the foot of Virgo, and the only other time is 2021. After that, it'll take 93 years before it comes back around again.
So it has to fulfill prophecy, biblical prophecy. So therefore, it has to be.
We have the Holocaust generation, which is getting very old.
Right.
That has to see everything fulfilled. And we have a problem with astronomy. The moon will not be back where it needs to be until another 93 years. Okay, so I can't say definitely it's going to be that day. I can't say that, okay? Because I have to have a visual. But the Bible alludes that we will have only a short time. And I guarantee you, by the time we can see it, they will have the internet down. They will not allow a global economy to crash without them controlling it.
One last thing about the internet. About a month ago, Facebook was lost its connection to the internet. Google had problems. YouTube had problems. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yes, I did.
Well, I spoke with a specialist in IT, information technology, and this guy has one of the most important internet spying networks. Or not spying. They call it the. I don't remember what the term he was using, but it's one of the main trunk lines, let's say, of the internet on this planet. He's a very important businessman. And I was speaking to him, and he told me that they shut it down on purpose because they had to rearrange some things for the coming shutdown. That's what he told me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Without a doubt. Look, I mean, I can only say so much. I'm trying to help to educate the public. I give the information free, everything you need to know, and where to look. Please be aware when it happens. You know what you're looking at. In other words.
Okay. And, next time, we want to go through the order of events with you, Gil, if possible. I'm going to let you go now so you can rest a little bit. We're gonna do the order of events next time. Please stay tuned. We're going to go through each one of them, the succession of events according to the model, and how this is going to be playing out in the next couple of years. I remember back then
Possibly,
when we said, oh, man, 20 years from now. Now it's a couple of years, Gil?
There's a possibility. There's a strong possibility because the magnetic field of Earth is exactly where it was in the past, next to the geographic north, on the other times that it passed. We have the generation that is getting old. We have the orbit of the moon is not going to be where it needs to be for it to be at the foot of Virgo anymore to another 93 years. We've got many factors that are lining up. And it says that we'll have a short notice. It doesn't say it. It alludes that we'll have a short notice.
So a guesstimate from 1 to 10.
That's as best as we can do.
Yeah, this is a best guess estimate, or a guesstimate we could call it, based on the model, based on the research, where it comes in through, and the moment you see that bright red thing coming in, you know it's going to be that. And when the internet goes down, just get your binoculars ready and go and look at the southern sky up on the ecliptic, and you'll be able to see it coming in the night sky.
That's it. It'll look like a comet.
Okay, and those that want to further their research and really are taking this to heart, you still have time to prepare spiritually as well as emotionally, mentally, because this is difficult, Gil. We can talk about it next time, how to deal with this as a family. Because I'm a father of two. My wife, we've been dealing with the problem of the conundrum of Planet X for some time now, but we're ready. I mean, we're spiritually, emotionally, mentally ready. But still, a lot of people are not fit to know how to tell their family members about the impending or possible impending events that are about to hit the fan.
This is not a random thing. The Father has a plan. He tells you where to be, at what time to be there. It's going to be associated with his feast. The actual Hebrew word is mekrah. That actually means dry rehearsal. He's having you rehearse these things to where when it becomes real, you know where to be at the right time to be. And you need to be, whenever you start to see it, you need to be in Jerusalem for Sukkot. That's 6 months before Passover. Remember, don't make your trip in the winter. Everyone else is going to try to, and Israel will have to start turning people away. You go there for Sukkot. That's just 6 months away. That's why he says Sukkot, unleavened bread, and Passover is practiced in Jerusalem. There's 7 feasts, but 3 of them, he requires you to practice them there. these are not vain religious acts he gave us. He's having you prepare for the right time at the right place, and he wants to see if you're going to follow him and follow his instructions.
Amen to that. I think that our Lord Jesus wants people to just get ready for whatever comes and really take this to heart. I know for a fact that in Israel, they've cleared up the run. They made a huge freeway down to Jordan where Petra is, and when you go on the tour, they built like a 16-lane, or I don't know how many lane freeway system they have, but it's huge. It's a huge road. I don't know how many lanes it is, but you could land airplanes there, right? So they asked one of the tour guys, "Why is this road so big?" And he said, "Oh, it's for the airplanes when people start flying into Israel." Because like they know that Israel is the chosen place for what's going to transpire.
Yeah. Remember, he says, my people die of lack of knowledge, not lack of religion. Because he's given you the knowledge, but you're not taught the proper interpretation of the knowledge. I'm trying to help you. Fiery dragon means common. When he says to be in Jerusalem for a rehearsal pattern, you go there.
Okay, now to go to Jerusalem,
and when you see it, you know it.
Yeah, to go to Jerusalem right now in this time of turmoil, political turmoil. I mean, look at what's happening with Palestine all over again, and then the changing of the capital, or recognition of Jerusalem as the capital now finally, and then we have the Golan Heights being also ratified as part of the territory of Israel, and the reignition of the Islamic Caliphate, because they're not gone. All this is brewing in perfect synchrony, mind you, with what you're saying. And I don't know, maybe even Donald Trump is part of the prophecy.
Yeah, seal 3, 4, and 5 has to happen before 6 and 7, which is 6 and 7 is the 2 meteor showers pertaining to this planet. So you know it because seal 3 is economic problems. That's going to be a breakdown in trade. And then seal 4 it talks about war, which is your Middle East war you're talking about. You're going to see diseases and famine. Between the diseases and famine, mostly, you're looking at 2 billion people dying. It says 1/4 of the world population. So how often has that happened in history? None. Not 2 billion people. No. This is going to be a one-time event. So you know you're going to wake up whenever you see 2 billion people dying because of starvation and disease. And that's when they'll have an interim of peace prior before the peace agreement is signed, which is seal 5. That gives you a window to fly in, because there's an interim. It's not full peace, but they're allowing people to travel, and you're able to get in there. That interim peace is going to be for Sukkot. And you'll be there when that peace agreement is signed with the Antichrist in the center of it. Whoever gets the credit for that peace agreement is your first confirmation of the Antichrist. And the only way you're going to see that is if you're in Jerusalem.
And another thing that people must know, you don't have to worry about the identity of the Antichrist right now, because everybody's like, think he's this guy or this guy or this guy. Don't worry about that. Worry about getting to a safe place and understanding that if you do, you're being you're part of history. And this history is prophetic, and it's already in the mind of God. So if you're heart-led or you're heartfelt to follow this, go and read up, prepare, and wait for the next video that we're going to be bringing you with GILL BROUSSARD. GILL BROUSSARD, any last words for the people that are listening to you?
I wish them the best, and I'll pray for them. I hope that they remember. I can only deliver the information, but only the Father can open eyes and hearts. Okay, I can't open people's minds to see this. Only He can. So pray that your eyes are open. and dig into his word and look at what the data here is saying. It's, you know, there's an old saying that if you want to find out, if you can find 2 witnesses in the Bible, that means it's okay, it's valid. All right? Well, we have 14 events in the Bible. We have 2 sets of 7 that proves it out in the Bible.
Right.
Study and gain knowledge.
All right. And if anybody could help us out, I need a Macintosh in order to translate these slides into Spanish as soon as possible because we haven't been able to. I need a Macintosh, and we've been trying, Gil and I, for years to get this his slides translated correctly within Photoshop into Spanish. And it has to be done with the knowledge in mind of what you're translating with pertaining to your research. I've interviewed and known Gil for many years now, and I know that what he's stating is the truth. He's been working tremendously and offering this material for free because he really is worried about you too. So if you understand that things are really beginning to unravel, and it's not just global change or climate change, but it's really things that are out there that are affecting us down here, and down below us, it's also coming up under us. I think it's time. I really think it's time. There's so many things that are just putting us at risk right now, and to not, take this into consideration and really just take it, for a week and think about it and just think, what would happen if I really do the research and study this, and then just based on that, come to a prayer session, pray to God, talk to him. Lord, is this what you want me to do? Is this what I should do? If you want to move me, but tell me. God will speak to you. His Holy Spirit is within us, and I really hope that for those people that this message got to them in time, that their souls be saved and protected, and they reach safe haven, in this case, in the land of Israel. So that's my say in this. Next time, we'll be talking about crustal displacement. We'll be talking about the displacement of the water from the oceans. We'll be talking about how this will impact us in a succession of events and a timeline of events that Gil has already made out of 33 specific events that we will be sharing with all of you. Thank you, Gil. Have a great evening, my brother, and good night.
All right. Good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. Leave your comment below, and please subscribe to our channel. Yeah, in English, and also this interview will be also subtitled in Spanish for our YouTube channel. Thank you. Thank you for that million subscription button, YouTube. It was hard to get it, but we finally did it. And we'll be in touch soon. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.